Your HOA sends out a report, and somewhere in there it says you are 70% funded. Is that good? Is that a warning? Should you be worried or relieved? Most owners, if they even look at that, have no idea, and boards rarely do a good job of explaining it. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to make you the person in your community who actually understands this number. Let's start with what percent funded is measuring, because the phrasing throws people off. 70% funded does not mean 70% of your dues go to reserves. It doesn't mean that 70% of a project is paid for. It's a snapshot comparison. Here's the mental model. Your HOA owns things, and they wear out. Roofs, roads, pools, fences. A reserve study calculates, based on the age and the cost of all of those components, how much money the association ideally should have saved up right now to be perfectly on track. Call that the fully funded target. Percent funded is simply your actual reserve balance divided by that target. So if the study says that you ought to have $1 million set aside, given how old that everything is, and your reserve account holds $700,000, you're at 70%. You have about 70 cents saved for every dollar the study says that you should have by this point. Now the big question, is 70% good? Generally, yes. It's considered a reasonably healthy range. Most financial professionals will treat roughly 70% as strong, and even above, that's strong. Because associations in that zone tend to handle major projects without emergency special assessments. From about 30 to 70% is a moderate risk range, and below 30%, the likelihood of a special assessment rises significantly because there simply isn't enough cushion. But, and this matters, the single number is only half the story. Direction matters just as much. A community at 70% that's been climbing steadily for years is in great shape. A community at 70% that was at 90% 3 years ago is heading the wrong way, and the trend is a real signal. So always ask, what's the number and which way is it moving? Here's another nuance. Percent funded is not a promise. A fully funded association can still face a surprise, a hurricane, a construction defect, a sudden insurance spike, and a 60% association isn't necessarily in crisis. Think of percent funded like a credit score for your HOA's reserves. A strong indicator of risk, not necessarily a crystal ball. Let me clear up a common misconception. Some owners hear that we're not 100% funded and they panic, assuming that the association is broke, and that's usually wrong. Very few associations sit at 100%, and being somewhat below full funding is completely normal. The goal for most communities isn't perfection, it's staying reliably above a safe threshold so that big projects don't trigger surprise bills. So how do you use this? When your association shares reserve information, look for three things. 1, the current percent funded. 2, the trend over the last several years. And 3, whether the annual reserve contribution matches what the study recommends. If the number is decent, the trend is stable or rising, and the contributions match the plan, that's a well-run reserve. If the number is low and sliding while the contributions lag the recommendation, that gap is your future special assessment waiting for you. One more practical tip, Don't confuse a big sounding reserve balance with being well funded. A community can have $500,000 in reserves and still be underfunded if its components are expensive and aging. Percent funded exists precisely because the raw dollar amount doesn't tell you whether it's enough. Context is everything. So next time you see that percentage, you're going to know exactly what it means. Your actual savings versus your ideal savings at this moment in time, with the trend telling you where you're headed. That's genuinely more than most board members can explain. If you found this useful, I've got a full reserve fund breakdown and a how to read your financials video linked at the end. Subscribe for more plain English HOA money explainers. And if your board wants an honest read on where your reserves actually stand, that's what I do at Aligned Impact. My name is Jay Boykin. Details are below, and I'll see you in the next video.